Alright, so for those of you just tuning in, we're about to spectate another viewer game as part of my weekly Twitch TV live streams. If you want to get in on this, you can find my live stream schedule by going to my Twitch page and scrolling underneath the video player there. And if you follow me on Facebook and Twitter, you will get updates on when I'm streaming next. Today's game is going to be a free-for-all King of the Hill diplomacy match on the map Water Nomad. So this means the players will be able to form teams with each other, but only one player can win, so there's going to be plenty of betrayals and backstabbing that goes on as the game drags on. I have plenty more of these on my YouTube channel, as well as tutorials and various expert games. You can find all that in the video description or just by searching for it. We're doing Water Nomad, which is a really, really silly map. We're putting a bizarre arbitrary restriction on there, which is that players are limited to building only 2 docks per person. I think that I'll let you see what Water Nomad is like when the game starts, but what's Kiko doing? He says sec. He's having a Twix. Aha, gotta get the product placement in there. So basically, Water Nomad is a really fun map to play, and I really enjoy all the new maps, but the problem with them is that on the new Mangrove Shallows terrain, where you can build buildings on, land units can walk on, and ships can pass through, all those maps like Water Nomad and Bog Islands are super imbalanced. This is supposed to be a land meets the sea expansion, where there are all these ships floating around and land units fighting them. But in practice, it never really works out that way because the ships are so overly dominant on maps like Water Nomad and Bog Islands, more so than on regular islands. Especially in the Feudal Age and Imperial Ages, it becomes very difficult for players to actually deal with the strength of ships. Like a fire ship or galley rush in the Feudal Age is insane. In the late stages, you can't deal with mass galleons at all. So that's where we're imposing a slight limit on the amount of docks the players can build. That way we can see the way that this map was meant to be played, the way it was intended, which is a mix of land units and sea units. And man, this map is so much fun. On Water Nomad, players start without a town center. Their villagers spread out across the map. You start with so many fishing ships. How many fishing ships do we have at the beginning? We start with 6 fishing ships and 7 villagers spread out all the way across the map. These poor players are going to have to find a corner to settle in, hopefully that's not next to somebody. And we do have a small 10-minute treaty, that way players can't lame each other's villagers at the start, which is a rule that you even see in competitive Nomad to avoid, excessive villager fighting. So yes, this should be this should be a blast. Water Nomad is one of those really creative map ideas. You could sort of consider it to be one of those joke maps, but there's so much novelty and fun in it when it doesn't boil down to who can make the most galleons. I had the pleasure of playing this map with the devs and testing it initially, and I remember getting my woodline rated with demo ships by the guy who made the map itself. And that was an absolute blast. So, provided the game's not totally dominated by ships, it's just so much fun to play. It's such a creative idea. This is a ridiculous map. And I love Mangrove Shallows. I've been thinking of creative ways to make the new maps more playable, because one of the problems is, like I said, the ships are super dominant. And if you end up, making pikemen, for example, have additional attack bonus versus ships that they don't normally have, then that kind of spills over to other maps like Saltmarsh. So not really a fan of that. Some guy named Mr. Big Cookie in my chat suggested that ships would be slower on Mangrove Shallows terrain, and I think it's a very interesting idea because it kind of makes sense thematically, and that could end up improving things. Or we just make it so Mangrove Shallows ships take 25% more damage on that. That's harder to communicate from a gameplay standpoint, but yeah, maybe that could fix it. I would like to lobby for changes like that. Because we exist in a world right now where, even though we have all these cool new maps, players just keep gravitating back towards the classics like Arabia, Arena, and Black Forest. And I'd like the new maps to be more playable. And I think that we've made a good step in the right direction by making acacia trees have 150 wood instead of 100. That was one of my ideas, and I hope that we continue to go further. So, if we're talking about strategy for this map, what should you do when you're playing a Water Nomad? Well, besides grab a drink because you're in for a weird game, one of the first things you should do is actually build a dock. So it's good to see all these players building a dock immediately and just trying to get your fishing ships to work. You have to build a dock immediately. This is a Nomad map, so you actually do have enough resources to build a dock and a town center. So you want to make sure that you build both of those immediately. And you need the dock so that way your fishing ships actually, you can get some usage out of them. This map is covered in water buffaloes, an absurd amount of resources, and it's just an absolute, absolute feast to play. Oh my god. Water buffaloes have 150 food, by the way, not 100. Jamie says, really want to see an effective Malay harbor rush. That has been nerfed so much now that I think that we will not be able to really see it. But if you want to see some gameplay of the new civilizations where we get to see things like mass Malay harbor rush, if you go to my YouTube channel and you search for my civilization overviews, it's in the description as well, you can actually see Pete and McKay going for some gnarly Malay harbor rushes in the Malay Civ overview, back when they were so strong. They got nerfed again in the patch 5.2 beta, which, by the way, we are playing now. I don't know. Poor Kiko. I don't know if he's noticed this guy. We are playing on the patch 5.2 open beta. Oh god, disaster. Look at this. We're playing on the patch 5.2 open beta. By the time you watch this on YouTube, I almost guarantee that patch 5.2 will have already gone live, so you'll all be updated to it. But if you're watching on Twitch, patch 5.2 is currently an opt-in open beta, and it contains a wide variety of significant performance improvements, as well as, you know, balance and bug fixes. Some pretty big nerfs to the Malay in here, just across the board. And this is the type of thing where we're always, you know, looking for your feedback and reading it, and I'm making sure that I'm forwarding it to the right people to make sure that stuff gets done. I don't have the power to change it myself, but I do have the power to at least make them listen. Oh yeah, 19 Cheesy. I might end up uploading some versions of the old maps that have the new trees and animals and whatnot. I might do that at some point. It just takes quite a bit of work. Yes. So yeah, maybe if I hit 200 subs on Twitch, I'll sit down and I'll rework those maps, post them on the workshop. So anyway, this is King of the Hill. So, ooh, whose wonder is this? It's a very, very cool looking wonder. This is King of the Hill, so there's a timer in the top right that starts at 550 years, and then when this timer hits 0, the player that controls the center monument wins the game. If you're wondering how you control the center monument, you must have just any sort of unit next to it, and if you have no units next to it at all, then it will switch to another player who has units right next to it, and then they will regain control of the monument. If the timer is below 100 years remaining, and someone ends up switching ownership, it will reset to 100 years. Generally speaking, when you're playing King of the Hill, for the love of God, when the timer drops to below 100 years, you have to push for the middle. And this is something that we see players routinely forget in my free-for-all King of the Hill games. And I find that these settings produce just really interesting games with a lot of twists and turns. Not only do we see some fun strategies that we can all learn from, but we also just see a lot of dramatic moments. And that's why I really like this. It's just that a lot of the time players forget that they're playing King of the Hill, and they will like push for the middle at 20 years remaining, and you'll never make it in time. So when it hits 100 years or so, you should definitely go there. I was going to say this is the Burmese Wonder, but I didn't want to get that wrong. I still think it's probably the Burmese Wonder, right? Very, very cool looking. And of course, during the beginning of the game, while we're waiting for our heroes to build up here, these are of course very high skill level players overall, so I am looking forward to this match. In terms of strategies, another thing that you want to keep in mind when you're playing on Free-for-all King of the Hill game is you definitely want to be making friends with your people who are in close proximity to you. For example, Mothump and Nathaniel over here are purple and teal players. Would make natural allies because they're so close to each other anyway. Unless you want to risk everything by going... Oh, this is so inefficient. Just the way the trees are set up. Unless you want to risk everything by like tower rushing your opponent, which you definitely can do. If you're like this close to somebody, you know, dropping some watchtowers on them can be a good way to take them out of the game. But that's a big risk, because if that fails, then you're really going to cripple yourself. So I do really like the idea of allying with people who are right next to you. In the meantime, establish peace, build up, fight each other later, maybe. So make allies based off proximity. I would also say if you're playing on like a Nomad map or something like that, you probably want to make sure that you're just not right next to somebody. Like Sir Lawrence is in a fairly nice position, right in the corner of the map, setting up a wall off here. I don't know if he needs to do this. I think it would be easier for him to, you know, kiss up to Kaladin over here, aka Telemachos. Be like, hey, the Khmer are my second favorite civilization, which is pretty good, right? And he'll be like, yeah, Yeah, I do like the Khmer, and then that's how you guys can establish some rapport and just become good friends. Hopefully not dying in the early game. So I think he's in a very nice position on the map just because it's very difficult for players to kind of gang up on him in the corner, so he really only has to deal with telemachos here. It should make him easy to defend himself. I do not think, though, that this might be a bit of a waste of wood, but if it makes him feel safe, that's fine. Thank you so much, Nagili, for the 11-month resub. Yeah, if you're next to somebody on Nomad, tower rushing is pretty nice. And yep, Sagam, that is indeed telemachos. In terms of actual civilization choices, we're going to discuss this real briefly here. I've talked about the Khmer in great detail, and I definitely encourage you to check out the Civ overview if you're not really sure about them. You want to learn more. The Khmer, their main defining bonus is that they have no building requirements to build other buildings or advance to the ages line. They're going to get a very fast castle age, like we're seeing Kaladin take advantage of here, our blue Khmer player. He's going for a fire galley rush. It's something that's very strong on these maps with mangrove shallows, and this is why I was limiting people to 2 docks per person, because frankly it's insane. In the feudal age it's very difficult to actually deal with these ships because they're just so cost efficient. Their stats are ridiculous. In the castle age at least you can deal with you can make like knights and mangonels and castles, and in the imperial age you're into another problem where galleons are once again super dominant. Not either resources to mass them up. So the Khmer are a civ that has very strong early game rushes because of the lack of building requirements. Their mid game's not that great, and then in the Imperial Age, in the post-Imperial Age, once they get there, they have a very strong late game death ball. It just is pretty slow to get out, and then once they get there, they can make ballista elephants and heavy scorpions, some gunpowder units. The Khmer is a fairly limited late game tech tree, so you definitely want to be focusing more on like gunpowder, siege, and elephants, and that should kind of be your go-to army, I think. Perhaps Halbs in the front, skirms maybe. Let's see. What other civs do we have? I just realized I probably didn't introduce the players at the start. We have Kigo playing as the green Goths, Sir Lawrence playing as the red Portuguese, Santa Claus playing as the yellow Portuguese, Nathaniel playing as the teal Mayans, Earth Shogun playing as the orange Byzantines, Mothump as the purple Goths, and Kaladin as the blue Khmer. Which of these civs do I feel like talking about? I want to talk a little bit about the Portuguese super duper briefly. So the Portuguese got some pretty heavy nerfs in patch 5.2, where now their arquebus unique technology, which allows their gunpowder units to be affected by ballistics. Ballistics makes your ranged attacks more accurate versus moving targets. Ballistics is a huge technology, and wow, this is actually a pretty nice wall. Ballistics is a tech that actually kind of defines the metagame. It's very, very strong in Castle Age combat, effectively neutralizing the opponent's ability to micro against your units. Oftentimes we'll see players take large groups of ranged units and they will walk perpendicular to the enemy ranged shots to juke them and then essentially take no damage. This is huge. It's just that once ballistics comes into play, then that no longer really works. So you'll often see players in the Castle Age, once they have enough ranged units, they'll build a university and get ballistics. This is pretty nice for gunpowder units because hand cannoneers are incredibly inaccurate at range. So this means that their hand cannoneers are actually capable of hitting something, which is a nice change of pace. They did get a very huge nerf though in patch 5.2, which is that arquebus also increases the projectile speed of the gunpowder shots, because otherwise giving them like just slightly more accuracy would really just be weak and terrible. So now it doesn't give any extra speed at all to bombard cannons and bombard towers. That's huge. I understand, though, why it was done, and it was done because it's really frustrating at a competitive level to play against bombard cannons particularly, and you can't dodge the bombard cannon shots at all once they had the extra projectile speed. Projectile speed did get nerfed in a previous patch, and now it's just been removed. So my thoughts are with this is that does Arquebus's technology feel unsatisfying to use now? It's certainly more balanced, because if you can't dodge bombard cannon shots with your honor guards or your own bombard cannons, then it's just insane. I do think, though, that maybe we should give some of the projectile speed back to the hand cannoneers and whatnot. I think that's more balanced. Just try to make the technology feel a little bit meatier for this cost. And also, the bombard cannons are no longer snipers. Bombard towers, too. So Portuguese sustained some serious nerfs, but they were a very strong civilization, so I'm curious to see how this affects them as a civilization overall. And if Arquebus could maybe use some tuning in other areas. What I like about this change is that even though it is really heavy-handed, the Portuguese bombard cannon was absolutely OP, and same with the bombard towers. And what this means is that now that we've shaved off some strength from them in their problem areas, we can afford to, if necessary, give the Portuguese back some strength in other areas without breaking the game. So that's a nice feeling. So it essentially frees up a lot of design space for the Portuguese in case that turns out to be too much. Right now it seems that our blue and teal players are very strong, and it looks like red and green are just lingering a little bit behind. Red particularly is not actually in the castle age yet, and he's not actually able to start researching it. I'm assuming it's just because he's a little less familiar with the Water Nomad map, as, let's be real, nobody plays this. But if you go to the ResQuote subreddit, I believe Urban Cohort posted a funny quote. They said about, like, Water Nomad, which is basically, if you're not good at Water Nomad, you're not good at Age of Empires. I love this map. It really tests you as a player. And here, in this case, I just think his economy is just incredibly imbalanced. This is not a good setup at all. He's almost 2,000 wood 20 minutes in the game, and I'm not exactly sure why. But at this point, one of the things is if you're newer, I really recommend not worrying about whether or not you're gathering from, like, multiple water buffalo or sheep at the same time. Just throw them under the town center. It's much better to... You know, because in a case like this, where it could be distracting away from his attention and these villagers have to, like, long-distance gather, I think it's just better to just slap a couple of them underneath there. And you should really just be transitioning his lumberjacks into something else. You would never need to stockpile this much wood. I guess he's just very preoccupied with walling right now, so something he's going to have to be very, very careful with, as this is going to slow him down quite substantially. Santa Claus, one of our Portuguese players, has indeed reached the Castle Age. We're looking at our Byzantines friend over here. I love the Byzantines civilization. They're a very popular civilization with newer players because they're so well-rounded. They have so many tools at their disposal with their discounted trash units that don't cost gold. Very wide, broad tech tree. I like them a lot because their Imperial Age costs less, and even though their Imperial Age is not that great, until it gets super late, you're able to get there earlier than everyone else, and that just feels quite solid. They got gunpowder, they got you know, decent infantry, decent archers, everything, decent cavalry, and in the super late game, elite cataphracts are always an option, but I don't expect to see them too much here. Elite cataphract as a unit is very difficult to counter, since they actually do take reduced damage from things like halves and camels, even though it doesn't say they do, which is kind of stupid. They'll still probably need halves in the front line anyway, but really the best way to deal with cataphracts are like mass archers. It's just that we don't see cataphracts coming into play that often because they cost so much to upgrade. You need Logistica and Elite Cataphract, which are some of the most expensive upgrades in the game, so very, very, very strong. It is nice, though, to have that kind of option. That's why I like the Byzantines. If the game ever goes late and you happen to be filthy rich, you have that trump card that you can whip out. Make Fred great again. We got the best walls. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. I've talked to a lot of people. I built a lot of walls. What's going on here? Yellow says F you. I don't know exactly what's going down. Hopefully he's not raging too hard. Oh, he has a hole in his wall. That's going to lose him the game, I guarantee it. We're going to revisit that later.
No.
Oh my, oh my. Alright, well, looks like these players are making some fire ships early on. You're wondering why they're making fire ships and not galleys? I think that's a very interesting question, one that warrants some explaining. So, when you are playing on a map with mangrove shallows, like Water Nomad and Bog Islands, fire ships are such a strong choice because you can actually use fire ships to raid your opponent's wood line. You cannot do that on like regular islands or something like that because the fire ships don't have enough range. But here they can go straight up to the eco and get them. Just kill all the villagers, torch them down, and that's very strong. Also, galleys are something that are generally considered to be a good opener too, and then this just guarantees you beat that. So, fire ships in that respect are quite good to open up with, and your opponent's not going to open up with demo ships unless he's a god. So overall, I think fire ships are a smart thing to open up with for sure. No, that's not to say that galleys don't have a place in that meta, sure, and you will probably need to make some demo ships to deal with it, but fast fire ship rush is just quite... I don't mean like fast fire ships, I mean like a fast fuel into fire ships is quite good. The wall just got 10 feet higher. Indeed, Edler, it's strong, strong, strong. Alright, so let's take a little bit of a look at some of the other civs in the game. Let's talk a little bit about the... What else we got here? Alright, well, while I'm on Mothump right now, let's talk a little bit about the Goths. So, the Goths, of course, are very binary civilization in that they have very strong infantry, very weak early on due to lack of an early game economy bonus, but in the Imperial Age, they're just able to spam infantry and just flood them out. They're like the Zerg of Age of Empires too, the discounted infantry. Quite difficult to deal with. If you're ever faced with a Goths player and they're spamming Huskarls, rest assured you can defeat them by simply making champions. Is generally a good idea. If you're the Goths player, that's when you start making your own champions, and remember that you have other units besides infantry. You can make hand cannoneers, even heavy scorpions if you're that kind of guy. So, Goths, they're slow but very, very powerful in the late game. So we're going to have to keep our eye on Mothump. He's going to be one of those late game bombs. Moving on to Nathaniel, our Teal Mayans player. On his way to the Imperial Age, what units will he be opening up with? As the Mayans, we see them as one of the few civilizations that are capable of going for a fast castle age into their unique unit, and not only is that a viable strategy, it's very strong. Normally a fast castle age into a unique unit is not that great, because you have to build the castle, which is a huge drain on your economy early on. Assigning those villagers to stone and not something else really cripples you. Then you have to build the castle, then you have to mass up your unique unit, and you're only going to be able to make it one at a time from your castle. You're not going to have a million of them early on, so it's generally weak strategy, unless your unique unit is the Plumed Archer, a Conquistador, or a couple others, and then it's insane, because those units are fast, they have great combat stats, they're difficult to counter early on, and because they're fast and have great combat stats, they make excellent raiding units. So, we're not going to be seeing any of that today, though, it looks like. Instead, it looks like our Teal player over here, what is his game plan? The Mayans also have excellent elite Eagle Warriors, whereas Zach would say elite illegal warriors. In this game, Nathaniel will be going for these elite Eagle Warriors. Very, very strong unit, thanks to Eldorado giving them plus 40 HP. In the early Imperial Age, Eagle Warriors are so strong when no reasonable player will have champions or any way to deal with this, and backed by a strong economy, you can kind of get them out sooner. Start really raiding them before paladins and champions come into play. So this is just quite a strong raiding unit and can be used to close out the game. So we might end up seeing that from Nathaniel. Have to keep our eyes peeled. Portuguese, very gunpowder-oriented civilization, but they have a fairly well-rounded set of units. And yeah, players just with a large army of fire ships. No one really harassing each other, so just slow, slow, slow early game, but things are about to heat up, both literally and figuratively, as the fire ships are moving out. Bruolos asks, why not make heated shot available to blacksmith starting the Feudal Age? I think because that would affect the balance on all other maps. That's basically why. I don't want to come in there and perform surgery and end up like really shifting the landscape of balance in other maps just because Bog Islands and Water Nomad are broken. I don't think that's a good balance philosophy. I don't think the game should be balanced around them. I think that Bog Islands and Water Nomad should be balanced around the game. So, in that respect, I would like to see, you know, some sort of change maybe with Mangrove Shallows terrain specifically. So, Red, he's got his outposts, he's got his walls. Purple parked out here. They're all friends, so I don't really know what's going on yet. Khmer player has bunches of castles, so many fish traps. With Jilnets, fish traps are actually fairly efficient, and it's something that I actually cover in my Malay Civ overview if you want to see a realistic analysis of how that plays out in practice. It looks like Orange is going to be opening up with a fairly standard like archer range plus barracks combination. Paladins and stuff as the Byzantines are not that great since they're missing a ton of upgrades. Yeah, particularly like a lack of blast furnace and bloodlines is pretty bad. The Paladins will be useful sometimes, and same with their Knights and Castlage are certainly useful. But I like this better, because what this allows them to do is it allows Orange to open up with something like Hand Cannoneers plus Halbs, which is pretty nice, or like Skirms plus Halbs, and then mix in some like Bombard Cannons and just go for a really value push. And in a King of the Hill game like this, I think it's a good idea to conserve your gold as much as possible, and this is something the Byzantines really excel at as a civilization. See the Black Winds, sleep well. Well, the Huskarls are indeed coming out. I cannot believe how passive these players are. But yeah. The fighting will begin shortly, my friends. guess this gives me plenty of time to provide analysis that I otherwise wouldn't be able to as the game drags on. Kaladin's spamming so many castles. He's positioning them in a way that it actually kind of protects his economy. I mean, I say that, but I don't like these two castle positions. They protect this gold, but yeah, I like this one better because it protects this wood line, all these farmers. I like to use them as a way to disincentivize your opponent from raiding, because like otherwise, if you don't position your castles defensively, then if your opponent starts raiding your economy with like elite eagle warriors, then you have to pull back some units to defend, and by having defensive castles, you don't need to, and you can continue applying pressure. So these castles are probably fine though, because they're not in trebuchet range. You really have to worry about that. This castle though, I really don't like, because it's just gonna get trebbed by blue like immediately. So, and also kind of the downside of red's positioning is he has to make sure that he escapes some villagers out of here, otherwise he's just gonna allow blue to devour him and box him in that corner, so. Meanwhile, teal is indeed moving out, applying so much pressure on Santa Claus, who is not really enjoying himself this game. No El Dorado out for teal, but he might not need it, because again, he's trying to take advantage of this, the fact that elite eagle warriors are very strong in the early Imperial Age, so he just wants to apply pressure, not wait for all the upgrades, get them as you go. Organ guns, I think, are going to be a good response here. Very strong gunpowder unit that did also sustain some pretty big Nurist. The Portuguese have really not been having a good time recently. Intero Bangin says, I keep getting an ad for the movie where Matt Damon saves China from zombie Mongol hordes. Is that a thing? I feel like some companies have really been stepping up their ad and trailer game and whatnot, but some just are absolutely awful. I really enjoyed that comment I got on my one of my Duelist videos. About the Legend 27 commercial. I hadn't seen that one yet, so when I saw it, it's just like, oh god. The Yu-Gi-Oh commercial I've been seeing recently, though, has been pretty cringy. Alright, well, yellow's in deep shit. Why exactly is that? Well, if we swap over to his population... Okay, so he has a bit of an economy. This is good, so he's not necessarily going to die, because we really want to make sure that we have at least 100 villagers every game. And I imagine that he just got outboomed. His economy very, very weak. 200 years remaining, by the way, so these players do have to fight at some point, whether or not they want to. Yellow gonna make some organ guns, but the organ guns are... Now that they have minimum range, is this unit good anymore? They have a minimum range of 1. Not so strong versus the Eagle Warriors anymore, so we'll have to see if that pays off. He just needs to get the Imperial Age. Portuguese have kind of that awkward point where you want to get to the Imperial Age, you want to get Arquebus, you want to start spamming hand cannoneers, Fetorias. Fetorias also got nerfed a lot recently. Damn, poor Portuguese. I was playing a game recently, and with a bunch of my Twitch subs off stream, and I realized that the Portuguese Feitoria, even though I'm not a huge fan of it from a design standpoint, feels really balanced now outside of like 500 population. You really don't get that much stone at all. Well, looks like yellow will be able to hold the line. In terms of military units here, what's green up to? Looks like green going straight for that Khmer throat. This is actually very bad for our Kaladin player over here, who's very strong. He is making elite ballista elephants, heavy scorpions, very fun army comp. Will he be able to defend himself against green? That is the question, because even though these scorpions are okay against Huskarls, he's going to need a lot of them to take on this green army. I feel like the Khmer struggle a bit versus the Goths. It's not unwinnable, but it is a little bit of a difficult matchup because they don't have champions. Since the Khmer do not have champions, I don't think they have squires either. They kind of rely on hand cannoneers as the better way to deal with Huskarls, but even then, that's not that great, as Huskarls resist those shots a bit. So you kind of have to make your scorpions and your hand cannoneers and settle for mediocre exchange there overall. But I think, though, that since Kigo, our green Goths player, has so few infantry units, that blue should be able to hold the line here, provided he can just get some great scorpion shots. And he's getting a lot of free damage on these units. They're doing very little damage, but it's all for free. Extra range of Scorpion's not that great here, but he has double crossbow, which makes him a lot better versus the Goths. Firing 2 projectiles at the same time is quite a nice bonus. Will blue be able to hold the line? Meanwhile, teal applying so much pressure, I think yellow might just get eliminated from the game. Caravel's an interesting thought. I think this unit is actually quite strong. He's like a sea scorpion. Yes. Or Shogun getting ignored by Green Senpai. The Green Senpai finally notices him. Huskarl's coming in for the kill. The dicey situation for our Kaladin friend here. Meanwhile, red just ready for anything. Set himself up with one hell of a perimeter. I think his incredibly defensive playstyle, though, is not... Yeah, it could pay off. And by the way, look how cool this match actually is, because we have limited them to 2 docks per person. I know that seems ridiculous, but ships are still seeing play as they're supposed to be, as intended. There's a lot more strategy to it. You can't just mindlessly shift queue ships all game. It's just something that you mix in with your normal units, and this is how this map is supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to involve land units and ships. So I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out so far. It's going to be a gnarly demo shot. Oh my god, absolute disaster for Teal. Not what he wanted to do at all. He tried to take out that demo ship with his elite Eagle Warriors. It's like trying to fight a bear with your face. Not a good idea. The bear wins every single time. And here, Nathaniel gonna lose so many of his Eagle Warriors for free. That was also not a good exchange, though, but whatever. He should have just let those trebuchets take that hit. Oh, man. Yellow is in a lot of trouble. I don't think these popsicle stick walls are going to save him here. I think he's got the right idea with the demo ships. When you're behind, you want to use, units like demo ships, mangonels, things that deal area of effect damage to try and claw your way back in the game, because you're not going to be able to match them on numbers, so you need a cost-efficient exchange, a 1-for-20 deal. Oh my goodness. Oh, what a game this has been so far. We are 130 years remaining, ladies and gentlemen. And no one's really looked towards the center, but once the clock hits 100 years remaining, I would like to see these players really considering that one. I love that Orange is stockpiling his heavy demo ships, and this is why I love this rule set. Everybody was rolling their eyes, but I'm so happy with this, you have no idea. Oh god, this is how this map was supposed to be. Look at these caravels. Ships being used strategically. Are there 2 Goths players in this game? Oh god, I hate playing against almost every civ in this game except like the Byzantines. 2 Portuguese. 2 Goths. Ugh. Mayans. Oh, this is disgusting. Shame on these players for these civilization choices. You're all naughty, naughty people. You. Well, poor Kaladin is really just getting ganged up on here. He's trying his best to defend himself, and really, there wasn't too much that he could do. He really needed to reach that critical mass, but the Goths are just a faster civilization. They require fewer upgrades to really get going, and I don't know why Blue's getting 3v1, but screw this guy in particular. Blue will not be able to hold the line. Sir Lawrence been biding his time. I didn't really mention this earlier, but Red boxing himself in a corner and stalling like he's been doing would make a lot of sense if he had a Faitoria to slowly generate him some value, but he has none and he isn't building one yet. Granted, the amount of value that it will, accumulate over time is actually so low now after all the nerfs. Damn, the Portuguese have just got wrecked by all these balance changes. Just, this civ has been completely neutered. They might still be good, though. Yellow tried to escape in his transport ships. Yeah, because stockpiling the stone's not even that crazy anymore. Now that the bombard towers, the shots can feasibly miss. Wow. But I still think, though, in a free-for-all game, you absolutely want at least 1 Faitoria kicking. Even though it doesn't generate you that much value, it's something, it gives you an edge over your opponents. It's kind of one of the things that carries the Portuguese a bit, because they are getting that gold discount, and they're getting just a little trickle. It's so negligible, and it's very easy to deal with nowadays, but it still gives them something. And I really feel like it's a waste of potential to not see a Faitoria out here, but it is less efficient than villagers in general, so, well, we'll have to see. Either way, Red, he had a slow start, but he is playing very well. He's got his siege engineers, elite organ guns, quite an intimidating army, so Sir Lawrence is poised to do some serious damage. Yeah, he's showing us that, the start might have been a little slow, but he's really picking up momentum, and he has set himself up to be one of the strongest players in the game, so props to him. Let's see. Who else is in the powerhouse right now? We have the Mayans. But one of the worst civ matchups in the game is Mayans versus the Goths, which I do cover in my Mayans versus Goths. The fun police this game, yeah. Jay Denny says, just got my appendix out. I'm glad I have some Resident 22 to watch. Well, thank you so much for letting me know, Jay Denny. Messages like that always make my day. They really, really do. And I hope, I'm glad that I can make you having to deal with having your appendix removed just a little bit more bearable. So thank you, and I hope that you feel better soon. Welcome to the live stream. So anyway, I covered this in my Mayans versus the Goths civilization matchup analysis video, where this matchup is just really, really awful. Why is it so bad? Well, the Mayans just... Oh my god, here comes some sick demo shots! Oh, I hope Tato watches this video later. I'm gonna have to tag him. I'm gonna have to tag him in this one. Well done. Yes. 47 minutes in. Shogun, he's in here. Boom! Takes out all the Huskarls. Shogun says bye-bye, Purple. Well played! That was pretty sick. Never change. This is why Age of Empires is so very fun. God, I love demo ships so much. I want to talk a little bit about the Mayans versus the Goths here. The Mayans have almost nothing to deal with elite Huskarls. They don't have champions, and elite Eagle Warriors are not good enough versus Huskarls. No hand cannoniers either, so it's just kind of a disastrous matchup. It's one of the worst in the game. The Mayans are pretty dominant in that matchup early on, but in the late game, they really struggle versus the Goths. So this means that basically Nathaniel has a very small chance at winning this game because these two players are dicks, and they have decided to hard counter Nathaniel. So even though Nathaniel is the scariest player in this game and has been playing so very well, I think he's a very small chance at winning because Mothop and Kigo, they're in it to win it. Double Goths action. So I think that Teal, very unlikely to win. Obviously Yellow not so likely to win because he's dead. That does tend to make it harder to win. Blue as well. He actually has a fairly sizable defense here, and hopefully they leave him alone and start directing their attention towards the middle of the map. Elite Battle Elephants from the Khmer with the Tusk Swords are actually pretty good versus the Goths, provided the Goths haven't made any albs yet. So my eyes are on the other players in this game. I think that Orange is in a good position here. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled. Red really moving line forward. This is a scary Portuguese army. And I like this because in all my videos so far, I have not been able to really showcase Portuguese units at all. In fact, most of the time when I'm trying to showcase units for a Civ and really kind of have a good example of what that Civ is supposed to be about, oftentimes I'm just making knights because I have to, or crossbowmen, and then I die or win. So this is kind of nice to see the elite Caravel, or just regular Caravel, coming into play, as well as the organ guns with the Siege Engineers upgrades are actually quite powerful. And now, Siege Rams coming out. Shogun has to be careful with his gold income because he's been fairly liberal with it, but his army is just so very scary, and I'm going to keep saying it because it feels really good, even though my rules seem weird. You see how cool 2 docks per person is as a rule? I want you guys to imagine how fun the new maps would be if ships weren't more overpowered than they are on islands. I say ships are overpowered on islands, but that's the whole point of the map, right? It's a water map. You're supposed to make ships. Obviously by design, considering that land units aren't Jesus unless you're playing HD, and then they can glitch on the water all the time. Obviously ships are supposed to be dominant, but on maps like these, it's supposed to be a little bit of a mix. And it's just so cool seeing them come into play. Orange really taking full advantage of these demo ships. 66 years remaining, so these players will have to start turning their attention to the middle. The clock is ticking. Kiko says this map is the pinnacle of bullshit. It kinda is, but that's why I think it's so fun. And it's significantly less bullshit with the dock restriction. Oh my. Poor Kigo. I don't think it's the map, though, that's killing him. I think that the Huskarl spam is a great way to deal with all the ships, considering they really have nowhere to run. And that he was having a ball before he got ganged up by everybody. So, Sir Lawrence marching out, everybody really underestimating him, and even though he had 2k wood at the start, this guy's picking up momentum very quickly. And some of these players are about to get eliminated from the game. However, it really feels like Orange and Purple are the only two people playing King of the Hill. We are at 50 years remaining. Mothop is making the right play here for sure, and building a bunch of barracks, really rallying all of his units towards the middle. Because you want to make sure that you have a constant stream of units, and putting battering rams in the middle in a King of the Hill game is also very wise, because the battering rams are just difficult to remove, and you're just trying to survive. Stall for as long as possible so that you can just win when the timer hits 0. So I think he's poised to win this game. So even though Red's playing well now, is this a colossal blunder of epic proportions? Because the hill's over here, buddy. We'll have to see. Teal moving out, though. Teal remembers what kind of game mode this is. He's making just a healthy amount of elite demo ships. All of this is actually such a balanced game. Purple gonna get pushed back. This is good. This game's not over yet. Orange coming in here as well to assist with the demo ships. Is he gonna switch alliances to kill, like, 10 demos with one? That would be great. Poor Santa Claus, by the way. He's not dead. This is why I love the Portuguese so much, because if you lose almost everything, just build a few Fetorias. Slowly claw your way back in the game, assuming you have enough money, because that jerk Cision made them cost stone now. I say that jokingly. My favorite thing to do, though, when I lose, is to be like, Cision strikes again. I lose due to a nerf. Oh, man. I think it does a really good job balancing. So, Teal, great play here, managed to switch control against Purple. And this matchup not so imbalanced when a couple demo ships, a healthy amount of demo ships, Doctor recommended dose, comes into play. Teal switching control of the middle back to him, making even a few two-handed swordsmen, which is honestly something that you shouldn't be afraid to make in a desperate situation. And God, I hate unit selection in HD. Please, for the love of God, fix this. You see how it prioritizes the barracks over the unit behind it? It's not like that in AOC. Go to the forums, guys. Don't let them get away with this. Teal turning it around. Terrible Civ matchup. Looking strong. Motham gets denied. Yeah, so Teal's in a great position here. Meanwhile, Red's still going the wrong way. So here's the difference between Teal and Red. Teal ended up killing this poor Santa Claus guy who wanted nothing more than to deliver presents to little children. And yet, even though he has killed his neighbor, Teal has seen that the clock is ticking. He's recognized that we are indeed playing King of the Hill. He has checked the objectives tab. King of the Hill, capture the central monument and defend it until the countdown ends. If all units defending the monument are killed, then someone else can control the monument. Very interesting. So in order to win the game, you need to send units to the middle. Teal's recognized this, and he has stopped killing all those poor people and gone straight to the middle where he can win the game. So, Kiko says it's not often I get to see Mayans Two-Handed Swordsmen. Indeed, and this is really the only time when they're good, is against infantry with like high pierce armor when you don't really have that much of a choice. Yellow might slowly be able to build back up. Oh man, so yeah, it's great to see that Teal, is turning his attention to the middle, because this right now is not the winning strategy. This is just the terrible thing that I see players do all the time that just boggles my mind, which is the not play the game, just kill people. Gotta go for the middle, my friend. So I hope that he turns it around, because now he's a powerhouse. He's been playing well. He just needs to stop bullying people for fun. Red can win the game. He's taking a serious risk. Serious risk by being asleep at the wheel here. Teal could so very easily win. It's last man standing. That means you lose. Every other player here is kind of playing the objective. I do think that Orange should probably shift his attention to the middle, too. He has been, though. He has been sending some demos. It's just we're playing a dangerous game here. That's why I always remind players at the start. Remember, when the clock hits sub 100 years, you are not going to make it in time if you wait till below 50 years. You're just not going to. Teal's economy getting absolutely wrecked by these Huskarls. That's why I hate playing against the Goths so much, because the Huskarl is such an excellent rating unit with its incredibly high pierce armor. Defensive castles, they do nothing. Same with, your own 10 center arrows. And the Mayans have a really hard time defending against this, so Teal's just kind of all in. He's actually sacked his entire economy. He's just decided that I'm not going to defend against Motham. He's going to try and go for the win. This is a bold play. If he wins here, that's respectable, because it's a huge gamble for him. He's going to have a lot of trouble actually building back the game, because he's not even trying to defend. I don't know who's Xing the middle, but they're a god. Thank you so much, whoever is doing that right now. Boo! If Teal wins this game, I'm so disappointed in half the players. And by half the players, I mean like a very small subset of them. Orange, still allied with Teal. This is good. This is very good that he is still allied with Teal. That way he can just slip in some of these demos and switch alliances at the last minute. Does he have the micro? Can he get these hits? 33 years remaining. Where the hell are half the players in this game? Orange with the Jaws theme. I wish I could edit that in and post without getting the video muted. Nice, nice, nice. And Teal still hasn't had a chance to switch to enemies with orange. These demo ships getting away with murder. He's coming. Da-dun. Da-dun, da-dun. Dun, 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 dun. Ooh! I'm having so much fun this game. Get him, Orange! Orange coming in for the kill. Now Teal finally has a chance to switch alliances. Oh, man. Maybe I should regulate it and just, like, only let players in who know it's King of the Hill. Oh, my goodness. Only let players in to play the objective. This has still been a really good game, though, despite that. It's been an absolutely excellent game, and one of the best King of the Hill games I've seen so far, just because it feels like it's such a good balanced mishmash of ships, and oh, this has just been so great. He definitely has to take out this castle, though. But I think Orange is having a blast with these demo shots. God bless you, Orange. Purple trying his best to really get in here, but I feel like Purple should probably start making some champions instead of elite Huskarls. It'd be a better way to deal with this army. Yeah, it looks like Teal's just going to win, and a little disappointed. Yeah. Oh me, oh my. But it happens. People forget about being King of the Hill all the time. And regardless, I think that this was just one of the best King of the Hill games I've seen so far. Seeing all these excellent demo shots. We've seen a lot of creative plays. Spoiler alert, 10 years is nowhere near enough, no matter how good you are at Age of Empires 2. Not even the Viper could clear this out in 10 years. These guys trying their best to go in, but no, really, like, Teal's got this. What a great play and a huge risk to not even really defend himself over here economically, instead opting to focus entirely on the middle. And Teal really showing us that this matchup is not hopeless if you're creative. He's making all the right mediocre units for this matchup. He is making two-handed swordsmen, he's making elite eagle warriors, and plumed archers, because plumed archers do have one attack bonus versus infantry, which does make them exceedingly mediocre at dealing with Huskarls. But in this matchup, mediocrity is all you can hope for, and in this case, it was enough to carry him to victory. Well played, Teal. Seriously, like, that was such a... That was a big gamble not defending himself, but he recognized that he could actually win this game by just investing everything in the middle. He made all the right units. Really shame on these guys over here for not actually playing the game. But regardless, it's still a good one. Good to see Orange and Purple pushing through the middle here. I love their unit choices. Just a great game overall. So yeah, GG, well played. My heart goes out to some of the players who just died. Like Yellow is, slowly getting back in this. Blue as well as Green. I also think we should have seen some champions of Purple. Alright, well, GG, well played. Let's go check out the achievements. This proves that the Mayans are greater than Goths. That's right, guys. Anecdotal evidence for the win. Check out those achievements. This is the Nathaniel victory theme. I love how Urshogun was playing this game. Look at this KD. Tell me this is not the best player in Age of Empires 2. This guy right here, the god. Absolutely love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. Urshogun, did he lose 0 buildings this game? The god. Immortalize this man. When he swooped in there at the end and Teal didn't have a chance to react, like, we saw what Orange was doing with the Jaws theme. Just bringing in those demo ships, getting ready to position them, still telling Teal that those demo ships are there for protection. It reminds me of the T90, like, 3-hour Regicide game I casted with them. Those demos are just there for protection, and then boom, kills all those units before Teal has a chance to switch alliances. What a great game. Yellow with most map explored, by the way. Not bad. Oh, Kigo, stop being so salty. Alright, so, thanks so much for tuning in, Khmer. GG, well played, guys. GG, well played. Well, you may have lost 0 buildings, Sir Lawrence, but you really weren't playing the game. So, yeah. Really, you're supposed to go for the middle in King of the Hill. Anyway, that was a blast. I think Teal totally earned that win. GG, well played. I'm looking forward to posting this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Probably not doing too much more Water Nomad ever again, or like Bog Islands, just because I just really wanted a video where I could showcase those new maps. They're a really cool idea, but they're just not... They don't really work in practice. unless like some changes are made to them. But I do think the Water Nomad is a really fun map, provided it's not full of ships. So. Oh, you can't reason your way out of this one, Sir Lawrence. I wasn't going to talk about it too much, but are you kidding me? Alright, well anyway. Alright. So that's basically it for the live stream today. Again, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it, especially those of you who take the time to check out the videos that I do for games beyond just Age of Empires 2. If you head over there, leave them a thumbs up. It helps out a lot with the longevity of the channel and continues to motivate me to produce Age of Empires content. Hope you guys have been enjoying it. Keep your eyes peeled for more videos, updates, etc. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter for updates on when I'm streaming next. And this is a good one. I'm very happy with how this one turned out. And the future, really, just of Age of Empires 2. I hope that HD just continues to get better. We see more tournaments with the performance improvements. Things are looking solid. Bright future. Let's pray no terrible patches come along and mess this up. I'm looking forward to it, guys. More content on the way. Thank you so much for being wonderful.